Conclusion. The man with the very virtues we need. I would rather a boy learnt in the roughest school the courage to hit a politician, or gained in the hardest school the learning to refute him, rather than that he should gain in the most enlightened school the cunning to copy him. G.K. Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton could have been describing Donald Trump when he penned those words. Donald Trump learned to hit, to counterpunch, as he says, in some of the roughest arenas around, the New York City real estate, construction, and political worlds. In other words, he's been through the school of hard knocks, where all three intersect. He also obtained again in some of the hardest schools, his high school military academy and the Wharton School of Business, the formal education to be able to go toe-to-toe with his advisors, whether military, economic, or political, and be able to give as good as he gets. Perhaps more than any politician in American history, Donald Trump has the courage to hit deserving politicians, and rarely have there been so many truly deserving of such treatment, or to debate policy with them on the national stage or in the back rooms just off the corridors of power. If you have read this far, it is our hope that the preceding chapters and videos, if you have watched any, have convinced you that Donald Trump is the man to vote for in 2020. As Catholics, we should look to our church's authentic teachings to guide us and instruct us, especially when difficult moral questions arise. The election of 2020, however, does not present a difficult moral question. No true Catholic in good conscience should be able to vote for one of the Democrat candidates, all of whom support virtually, if not absolutely, unlimited abortion, the marginalization of religious freedom in the name of a misguided view of equality, and the craziness of the trans rights movement. Many, in fact, support a political system, socialism, or some variant thereof, that has been explicitly condemned without qualification by multiple popes, and those who do not have nowhere demonstrated the vision and courage that Trump has in resetting the entire international framework of trade and commerce, a resetting that will allow America to stop bleeding good-paying jobs through a corrupt system that enriches a small international elite at the expense of the American working class. Had Hillary Clinton won the 2016 election, Catholic life in this country would have been circumscribed. Happily, she did not. Sadly, it seems that for the foreseeable future, if any Democrat attains the highest political office in the land, as their party is currently constituted, Catholic life and freedom will be circumscribed in the name of diversity and a twisted kind of tolerance. The differences between the Democrat candidates in that regard will only affect how slowly or quickly that occurs, not whether it does. In short, they won't let us be Catholic. They don't want to let Catholic schools be Catholic, Catholic nuns be Catholic, Catholic adoption agencies be Catholic. On an individual level, perhaps some would, but the powers that be behind the Democrats today and the whole drift of the culture they support is hostile to the faith and our practice of it. Just ask Father Pavone or the Little Sisters of the Poor. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is an ally. Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie wrote a book called Letting Trump Be Trump. Trump will let Catholics be Catholic. Compared to the Democrat candidates, their platform, and desired policies, that counts for a lot. But what of the man himself? Some Catholics will tell you they vote for the man despite his character. They are wrong. You should vote for him precisely because of his character, for only a man of his character, warts and all, could have taken on the corrupt establishment and won. Donald Trump is a leader of men. But more than that, he is a victorious man, granted imperfectly so, but aren't we all? Romans chapter 3, verse 23. The 7 virtues we Catholics most often talk about can be divided into 2 groups: the cardinal virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude, and the theological virtues of faith, hope, and love. We would like to conclude by looking at the man in the light of the cardinal virtues. It would be folly to try to do so in every area of his life. To paraphrase Pope Francis, who are we to judge? Rather, we will do so with regard to his role as candidate and president. Prudence. Prudence disposes the practical reason to discern. in every circumstance, our true good and to choose the right means of achieving it. Donald Trump is a prudent man. He discerned the right time for a run at the presidency. Defying the experts and received DC wisdom, he pulled off the greatest political upset in modern history. He seems to have remarkable instincts, if not in every, then certainly in most circumstances. He knows our true good is to bring back manufacturing and that the lies of the neoliberal economic globalist free traders were just that, lies. Well, lies for some, misguided errors for others, designed to enrich a global elite at the expense of the middle and lower class in this country. In foreign policy, he knows who our number one enemy is, and it ain't Russia. It is radical Islamic terrorism, and he has forged remarkable coalitions in the Middle East designed to destroy it, root and branch, after his predecessors fostered its growth and expansion. In his battle against the swamp, the deep state, and the resistance, he has let things unfold slowly, too slowly for many, and he undoubtedly is making concessions along the way, but increasingly it seems that his approach has been the right one. Brian Cates writes about this often. Many of Trump's most ardent supporters seem to think that he is incompetent in his hires, and that if only he had listened to them and blown up the deep state on day one of his presidency, everything would be fine. But he did not. Most likely, had he done so, it would have caused tremendous turmoil and upheaval. As his Attorney General William Barr quipped in one interview, these things take time. Trump is not perfect, and no one agrees with the prudential judgment of anyone else 100% of the time. But Donald Trump is a prudent man, and where he may be viewed as imprudent, we will take his unique brand of courage any day of the week. A case in point is his being the first president to address the March for Life live, first remotely and then, this year, in person. We are sure some of his advisors told him not to, that it would be imprudent. We like Trump's courage of his convictions. Justice. Justice consists in the firm and constant will to give God and neighbor their due. Because you'd be in jail. That line is perhaps the most prominent example of his commitment to justice and the one for which he will be most remembered. But there are many others, including his freeing of numerous prisoners who have been in jail for too long and have been rehabilitated or were unjustly jailed in the first place, his desire to return a decent standard of living to the American working class, his desire for trade deals that are truly free, fair and free, his carving out space for religious entities, families, and individuals to carry out their mission and live their lives unimpeded by a rapidly secularist vision of society and the United States Constitution, which is not in keeping with that Constitution, by the way. Though it is difficult to pin down with any degree of certitude Donald Trump's religious views, one can only surmise that to have gone through what he has since he announced his campaign and throughout his presidency, he has had to rely on God perhaps more than ever before in his life. The fact that he does not wear his religion on his sleeve is not something we hold against him. At the same time, his speech at the March for Life seemed, like all of Trump's speeches, authentic and sincere. And he spoke unapologetically and very comfortably about God, the dignity of human life, and the soul. Consider, all of us here today understand an eternal truth. Every child is a precious and sacred gift from God. Together we must protect, cherish, and defend the dignity and sanctity of every human life. When we see the image of a baby in the womb, we glimpse the majesty of God's creation. When we hold a newborn in our arms, we know the endless love that each child brings to a family. When we watch a child grow, we see the splendor that radiates from each human soul. Sounds like one of us, doesn't he? Temperance. Temperance moderates the attractions of the pleasures of the senses and provides balance in the use of created goods. Well, this may seem a tougher nut than the others given Trump's brash persona and embrace of and flaunting of his personal wealth. But is it? It was mentioned that Trump was a man about town in years past, but one who was temperate, nay, abstemious when it came to alcohol and drugs. He has never indulged in either. That said, he is certainly intemperate in his criticism of his enemies. And we don't say political enemies, for the noun needs no modifier. This is a war we are witnessing between Donald Trump and the establishment, some of the members of which with their very freedom on the line, and the stakes are high. Yes, Trump is intemperate in his attacks on them, but he has every right to be mad. He is intemperate. He is intemperate against them because he loves America and Americans so much, and they have undoubtedly committed high crimes. So let's see what happens and whether President Trump was wrong to be intemperate. Something tells us he will, in fact, be revealed to have exercised a fair amount of restraint once the full story is told of just who violated the laws of these United States and how, in their quest to prevent his victory in 2016 and then to remove him from office once he was inaugurated, they went about it. For our part, we eagerly look forward to hearing more from Mr. Durham. Fortitude. Fortitude ensures firmness in difficulties and constancy in the pursuit of the good. If there be one virtue he seems to possess in spades, it would be this one. Donald Trump is a man of fortitude. Who else could have withstood all the attacks and lies that the media, the Democrats, and the never-Trump Republicans have directed against him since before his election? Who else, once in office, could have sustained and carried on in the face of widespread felonious leaking and treachery by deep state holdovers and plants in his own administration? Undoubtedly, President Trump and his family must be the target of every worst threats and menaces, the details of which we may never know. In a very real sense, Donald John Trump has given the country an object lesson in what it means to be a man of fortitude. As Catholics, we can hope that our bishops are watching and that the good ones will learn from him in that regard. Incidentally, the church in this country has an outstanding example of a bishop who fought for his flock in a way perhaps not all that dissimilar from the way in which the 45th president fights for his people. As a New Yorker, it is expected that President Trump might like the story about Archbishop Don Dagger Hughes. Dagger and the Donald. In an article attributed to a Sister Elizabeth Ann, SJW, the most famous incident of Archbishop John Dagger Hughes's remarkable episcopate in New York is recounted. Sister writes, Hughes' third and most dangerous battle occurred in 1844 when anti-Catholic rioters in Philadelphia planned to come to New York. During the riots in Philadelphia, 2 Catholic churches had been burned down and 12 people had died. In response to this threat, Hughes put armed guards around the Catholic churches. Then Hughes warned the mayor that if a single Catholic church were burned in New York, the city would become a second Moscow. The city of Moscow was burned to the ground by its own citizens to prevent Napoleon from using the city as winter quarters for his army. Whether Hughes meant what he said or not will never be known. His threat was taken seriously enough for city leaders to force the rioters to cancel their rally. After these battles, Hughes became the best known, if not exactly the best loved, Catholic bishop in the country. There is apparently some question as to whether the incident detailed above is apocryphal. We hope not, and believe not, and certainly sounds plausible given what we know of Archbishop Hughes. If not true, it should be. There are also various versions of the story as to whether he used the threat about Moscow or other words to similar effect. It does not matter much. The point is clear. In another article, a review of a biography of the Archbishop which appeared in America magazine, Reverend Anthony Adrassi concludes with the following passage. Hughes had the descriptor dagger placed before his name in his own day and ever since, due to his fiery personality, which blazed at times at those both within the church and without. In more recent years, some have criticized him for his bluster and street fighter tactics. However, in 1966, John Tracy Ellis offered a more nuanced and arguably more valid assessment of Hughes and his style of leadership. The former dean of U.S. Catholic history pointed out that American Protestantism of the 19th century was by no means as open and irenic as it has been for the last half-century. For this reason, according to Ellis, there were times when Hughes's very aggressiveness was about the only approach that would serve the end he was seeking. Vision, V-I-Z, justice for his people. The more nuanced and arguably more valid assessment of Hughes and his style of leadership by Ellis, alluded to by Father Andreassi, could also be applied to President Trump and his style, tactics, bluster, call it what you will, that has so offended so many, including many of our Catholic leaders, both clergy and lay. Donald Trump stands up for us in a way that precious few of our leaders have. Donald Trump fights for us at great personal cost in a way that precious few of our leaders have. Donald Trump has laid down his life of wealth for us in a way that certainly no politician has, for most of them become wealthy during and after their political careers rather than before, as he did. Yes, Donald Trump has gone to war for us. There were times when Hughes's very aggressiveness was about the only approach that would serve the end he was seeking, justice for his people. Perhaps if, over the past 50 years, the Catholic Church in the United States had had a few men with the fortitude, courage, thirst for justice, and yes, perhaps even those qualities, which many consider flaws of a Dagger Hughes, or, dare we say it, a Donald Trump, the country and our church would be in a very different place today. It is our loss that we did not. Faith, hope, and love. We will leave this look at the virtues of Donald Trump at the four cardinal ones. The three theological virtues seem to be somehow more personal. But we will note that the president has fought the good fight for the people who elected him. When all is said and done, President Trump, if he succeeds in his struggle against the corrupt establishment, will have done much to restore the average citizen's faith in his government. He already has done much to install hope in millions around the country who had none, hope for the future, and the future of their children. And he has loved his people, who in turn have loved him. Looking from afar, it seems to us that he strives to love God and hope in him and love him in his own imperfect way. But more importantly, in his role as president, he will fight to the death to allow us Catholics to live out our lives of faith and hope and love in a free society. May God bless Donald John Trump.